Welcome to the Old Man Orange podcast, the place that we have all kinds of Skype errors, and sometimes you just want to get a gun. Sometimes I'm afraid. If I had a gun sitting in my house, I don't know what I would do. And it's not that I'd shoot the computer. I'd probably shoot myself and go, fuck it. I just want it to end right now so I don't have to deal with this fucking shit ever again.
That's Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I know that sounds like such... Yeah. You ever just get to that point where you're just like, I'm glad I don't have a gun nearby.
I'm Ryan Duncan, and if I had a gun nearby, I'd probably not be here now. And we have our returning special guest.
It's FD Gross, otherwise known as Frank Gross.
But
to have you back, man.
Yeah, have you back, and it took us all of a grand hour to get this all going. But other than that, though, we got all kinds of fun stuff to talk about because we said we were going to come on back the second that Castlevania came on the air. And, well, we're a couple days late on that. But, boy, was it just... Even though it was only 4 episodes, which is technically like a movie's length, it's really like the most like amazing. You couldn't ask for more. Like, I'm actually surprised at actually how good it is. Like, it looked good. But I was surprised at how good it was.
I can tell you when I woke up that morning and I was like, checking Netflix. And then boom, it was on and I was like, what? 4 episodes? What?
Well, I know, because 4 episodes, that's like so low. It's like, why don't you just call it a movie if that's the case? You know what I mean? Because it's perfect like movie length. It's like an hour and like 35 minutes.
Well, that's how I look at it now. I go, it's the Castlevania movie. It's Castlevania movie number 1.
You know, and the only thing I can assume is that they did the kind of like poll and research. They're like, TV shows are more popular than movies, so let's just break it up. But it feels more like it's a movie. I mean, even the episodes, it's like you start the first one and it's got like the intro, but then there's no intro in episode 2, 3, and 4. It's literally like it just cuts right into like where you left off last.
So let's just get this ball fucking rolling. Does it now? Does anybody know? Is this movie? I mean, is this show? Is this the original movie that Paul W.S. Anderson was going to do, and they just animated it, or is it a brand new script?
No, it is definitely it's Castlevania 3 is a movie.
Well. Is it Castlevania 3? Because, they've got characters from Castlevania 3 in it, but they're like, well, let's go ahead and throw in Symphony of the Night backstory, too. Well, let's just bring all of Alucard's history into this as well.
Well, what I think it is it's like, okay, because, you can kind of combine those ones together. I always feel there's 2 big major storylines in Castlevania. It sounds so weird that one of them's a regular Nintendo game. Like, how many times is that the big storyline? But Castlevania 3's story, and then the kind of the Ronda or the Dracula X / Symphony of the Night. Those are like the 2 main ones. And they connect so well together anyways. So what I'm guessing is what they're going to do. You got these first 4 episodes, and then hopefully the next season will kind of conclude Castlevania 3 section, but then it will progress into Dracula X and Symphony of the Night, if I had to guess.
Right. Well, I've been I was talking to Ryan about this, but I've been checking out what Adi Shankar has to say on like his Facebook posts and stuff, and some of his interviews I watched, and he's talking about this one guy that was, I forget the name of the talk show he was on or being interviewed by, and he's like, hey, so can you give us any kind of hint as to what season 2 is going to be about? And he's like, I can't do that. Like, he's just flat out like, I can't do that. That's spoiler territory. He's like, okay, well, all right, so you can't say that. So is there anything you can tell us about what season 2 would bring? And he's like, I'm not supposed to say this, but... And he looks at the camera and he's like, Alucard. So,
if you're just in a room with if you're in a room with Castlevania fans, just hear like, oh shit! Like at the top of their lungs.
But what's funny is like, I don't know if we're going to discuss ages over this conversation or not. I don't know if it's relevant or not, but when I first started playing Castlevania, I was young, and there was no Alucard when I started playing Castlevania. So that'll kind of give away my age a little bit, but I just remember playing Castlevania in the arcade, and
the Haunted Castle one.
Castle. And people now are like, Haunted Castle, what's that? What is that? Haunted Castle. I said, that's the arcade version of Castlevania, you know. And then
it's like ridiculously hard too. It's like way harder than any other Castlevania game.
For sure. And then I finally, and then I got Nintendo when it first came out. I remember getting Super Mario Brothers and Gyro, or was that Gyro? Yeah, Gyro, right? Anyway, another super old game. And then Kung Fu, and
yeah, I remember Kung Fu.
And then Zelda came out. Anyway, and Castlevania 2 came out as well. So I played Castlevania, played that to death, and that's all. That was my Castlevania wall. Just Castlevania 1. And then when they started advertising Simon's Quest, Castlevania 2, I was like, what? And like the boxes being on the commercial, like,
And it had the coolest. It has like the coolest Nintendo Power cover, where it's like just Simon standing there with Dracula's head. Just
why is that on a Nintendo cover magazine?
Yeah, well, it's always known as like a controversial one. It still is like really badass looking to this day. It's not like I feel like they would have a hard time putting that on a magazine cover today too.
So I played Castlevania 2, and then I was like, and then finally they're like, oh, Castlevania 3 is coming out. Dracula's Curse. And I'm like, what? And then you start reading about it, and it's like, what? You can choose which way you want to go? Wait, there's other people you can play? And that's when Alucard came in, But Alucard was the hardest person to play in that game. So nobody ever went Alucard's path. So it's almost like Konami was like, well, they didn't take to Alucard too well in Castlevania 3. So then they made Super Castlevania 4, and then, the Game Boy Castlevanias. And they're like, all right, now it's time for Alucard to shine, And that's when they made Symphony.
Well, because he didn't have very good moves in Castlevania 3 either. It's like he had he could shoot one fireball, he could turn into a bat, and
horrible. And his fireballs didn't do shit. It was like, you have to shoot like kind of only kill a bat. I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean.
No, but yeah, it took way more hits with that fireball than it did anybody else's weapon.
Yeah,
let's just say that.
And when, how you normally upgrade your whip attack, right? You upgrade Alucard's fireball, and it's like, now you have 2 shitty fireballs. Now you have 3 shitty fireballs.
Yeah, it's just like, oh. It's funny, too, because in that one, Alucard, too, he doesn't look like how you think of Alucard nowadays. He actually just looks more like, Dracula. Like, he's got black hair and everything.
He kind of looks like Bela Lugosi.
Yeah. And he's, like, super tall, and he's, like, way bigger than everybody else, too.
But, yeah, so, like I was saying earlier, as far as the animation goes, I didn't know it was going to be so, like, R-rated, but I loved every second of it, But that first bar scene when in the tavern with the locals and everything, and Trevor's back in there sitting there drinking all drunk and stuff, and those guys are carrying on that conversation. I was laughing my ass off the whole time.
Oh, I thought that was awesome. It's like, it's like, I'm so glad they put.
I was not expecting them to have conversations about goat fucking so casually, like 5 minutes into the second episode.
And it wasn't like, okay, goat fucking, and then move on. No, they like linger on that shit. Like, so I was there, and I was like, I see him, he didn't feel he's naked, and he got his fucking goat. And it's just like, what? Like, wait, let me remind you. What did he just say?
Well, it's also one of those things where it's also one of those things where they're trying to like totally set it up like, okay, you're okay with Trevor beating the fuck out of these guys. They're trying to make it so much like more acceptable. Like, he's just beating up on a couple of poor, helpless, drunk guys. No. He's beating up a couple of poor, helpless, drunk goat fuckers. So yeah.
Well, wasn't the guy talking about that somebody else was fucking his goat? Wasn't that like what the story was? Yeah, it's like, Bob came in and started fucking my goat. So I got my shovel out and I slapped him across the head. Taught him
Who's
a
gonna
lesson
fuck my goat? It's gonna be me.
Yeah, God damn it.
I think it originated. He was walking through the field and there he was lying naked next to the goat. I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "You fucking the goat." And then the guy's like, "So you hit him with the shovel?" He's like, "Fucking yeah, I hit him with the shovel." What just happened?
I like the show's choice of levity. It's like we just saw a whole town get massacred. We just saw a woman get burnt to the stake. The show's choice of levity is goat fucking jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and keep my testicles out of this.
Oh yeah, that bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I kind of liked how Trevor was just drunk the whole time. Like, keep in mind, I'm like my Castlevania knowledge is bare bones. Everything I kind of know, I've kind of overheard Spencer talk about, or I just saw like, oh, what's this an action figure of? Alucard. Oh, okay. I
think Alucard was kind of like spot on as far as his personality. For Trevor, I was thinking totally something way different, like kind of a more serious kind of, person. But since we only really had a video game to go on by, and they never really had Trevor with any kind of dialogue or any kind of backstory or anything, you know how you just perceive something, and then when you see it, somebody else's interpretation, you're like, whoa, that's not how I imagined it. So that's kind of like how it was when I first saw Trevor on there, but then I was like, okay, I like it though. It works, even though it was completely not what I was thinking.
Well, perfect example of that too, I feel, is Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. Is that one because you have all this you kind of perceive how you picture all these characters when reading about them throughout the game, and then once you start adding these voices to them, it's kind of like, oh, it's not bad, but it's just like, that's not exactly how it kind of went down.
Yeah.
And if Trevor, I guess, he does have speaking lines in, Castlevania Curse of Darkness. I'm trying to think.
I look back when playing those games, I'm always going to look at, the first 3 Nintendo Castlevanias as, the originators. Those are, the go-to Castlevania games for me. Even Super Castlevania 4, it was a great game, but it still wasn't the same as the originals. You know what I mean? And then
it's definitely different. Even there's technically nothing like it actually by the end of the day.
Yeah, and then Symphony of the Night, it's an awesome game. I love it, but it's just totally it forced Castlevania into the next millennium. The next generation. It's like, okay, we're getting away from these impossible platform jumpers, and we're going to make it an RPG now, a little bit more adventure.
Yeah.
Going, and even though you were still confined to one castle, but which is why I do like some of the later the Game Boy Advance games, like Order of Ecclesia. Did you ever play that?
Yeah.
So that was kind of set up where you go around the world. You can go to different locations. You weren't just in the castle all the time, which is kind of similar to Bloodlines. Because in Bloodlines, you moved around Transylvania, right?
Yeah, you went around all of Europe.
Yeah, so Ecclesia reminded me of Bloodlines a little bit in that aspect.
That's actually one of my favorite ones, is that game. That was the last DS one to come out, and that one I thought was really dialed in. And that's where I kind of I categorize, there's 3 types of Castlevania games. You got classic style, and that's generally just, your regular platforming, anything that's kind of, you don't level up. Yeah, all the whip actions and everything. And then you got kind of the Metroidvania RPG ones, like Symphony of the Night. Then there's all those ones. And then I say there's the 3D ones, too. And that's about the 3 different types, I kind of feel.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so you're talking about, Lords of Shadow?
Yeah, Lords of Shadow, Lament of Innocence, Curse of Darkness, the 64 ones even.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, for sure.
It's kind of like, those, they kind of, each one, like, I love them all, but each one kind of has its own different kind of feel. Like, maybe you might be in just like, hey, I just want to play the classic style, 1, 2, 3,
Yeah, like
4, Bloodlines,
I feel
Dracula X.
I feel like yanking my hair out today. Let me play the original Castlevania.
Well, it's like the third one. It's just like, I don't know. I remember when I beat Dracula on that one. It's like, I don't know how many tries it took. And I remember because it's like, I think we talked about this last time we talked, but it's just like you get to that point where every enemy does a quarter damage. A bat hits you, you lose a quarter of your health.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make a difference what you get hit by along the way.
Was it that one, or was it number 2 that like there's a lot of like push against like, what the fuck? This one's ridiculously harder and it's unfair.
Castlevania 3 is probably the hardest platforming Castlevania there is. I would say.
Yeah, 3's. I mean, 2 is tough in the sense that sometimes you get kind of confused on where you're supposed to go. That's what makes 2 kind of tough. But 3 is just one of those ones. Like, I don't know if it's the hardest one, but boy, is it still challenging though. I'm trying to think of like, I don't know. Sometimes Dracula X can be kind of a tough one too.
Oh, you know what? You're right. Because that was more like, that was more in the style of the first one,
Yeah. Well, and I remember, to me, it took me a while to beat Dracula X. It's like I beat Dracula X easily with like when you can play as Maria, because she jumps like Super Mario style, that she can just jump any direction she wants.
Yeah.
And then it's like, it's like with Richter sometimes. It's like, God, son's like just getting those jumps timed out right and not getting hit and falling backwards into a hole or something like that.
Yeah, it's almost like when Super Castlevania 4 came out, and they're like, okay, we're gonna make this one, we're gonna amp it down a little bit. We're gonna make it a little easier for players to play, where you can actually jump and move in midair with your jump, or like you can jump and like catch onto the stair when you're falling instead of just falling down the stairs.
And you could jump in one direction and whip backwards and so on in any direction.
They must have got so much stuff, so much criticism about it, how easy it was. So then they made Dracula X, and they're like, all right, that was too easy, huh? Let's fucking make it hard as shit again.
Well, I feel like with Dracula or Castlevania 4, when they were making that, I bet you in their minds it wasn't like, oh, it's easier. I bet you it was just like, oh, we got new technology. Guess what we can do now? We can whip in all kinds of different directions. Because, we couldn't do that on the regular Nintendo. We could jump and like turn in midair just like now how Super Mario does it. So I bet you they weren't thinking of it as like, oh, it's making it easier. I bet you they felt like, oh, we're progressing as a game. And then when people are like, oh, it's too easy. Then they're like, oh, okay, I guess they want the shitty mechanics back, which is not like it's a bad thing, but you know what I mean? Like, in their mind, you're like, hey, we're trying to improve this, and what do you want? You want the exact same Nintendo mechanics, but like on Super Nintendo?
Exactly. That's bastards.
Is Konami, because I know Konami was being just a bunch of dicks for a while, and like giving Hideo Kojima the boot off Metal Gear Solid and this and that. Have they put out any recent Castlevania games at all?
No, because the last time they did one was Lords of Shadow 2 on 360 and PS3, and that was almost like the last big Konami game, just including Metal Gear Solid 5.
I'm surprised they even kind of like, I'm part of me, I'm not sure what it is, like, because I'm not sure if Konami... Go ahead.
I heard that they just stopped making games right now.
Like mainly Coleco machines and gambling machines primarily is what I heard.
Well, that's their main thing, is they make gambling machines. So to them, gaming was always sort of like a second venture, which is weird because they have like some of the best games known to mankind. But like, I think about the list of Konami games, and it's like, dude, their games like rival Nintendo, and they rival like Capcom and all kinds of stuff. I'll actually say this. I think Konami has much better games than even Capcom does, and I like Capcom a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely choose Konami over a Capcom game.
Well, Capcom's almost kind of going the same route, kind of like, what's that shit we like? Money. What are we kind of out of? Heart. It's kind of like how Konami definitely. Capcom's starting to head down that route.
Well, both Konami and Capcom, they kind of went down it together, because you can kind of watch, like, they both mirror each
hand in hand into the abyss.
Yeah, because, you think about it, like, okay, there's that time period about 6 years ago or so when Japanese games, this is like when Lords of Shadow came out and everything like that, but a lot of Japanese games were doing the thing where they were like trying to not be Japanese whatsoever. They were trying to be like as European/American as possible. And because you look at Lords of Shadow, it's like it has no anime look to it. It's got like this almost Lord of the Rings feel. And I don't remember, I like Lords of Shadow a lot, but it is a lot different than like the normal Castlevania you were used to.
Yeah, I got more with Lords of Shadow for both of them. More particular in the second one. I got more of a God of War feeling.
Yeah.
You know?
And, you know, you could totally tell they're going for that. And another example is because this game came out the exact same time, is Devil May Cry 5. That one also, too, like, it didn't have an anime look. It started to look like a CW TV show. And it's still a fun game, but, like, when I play it, I just do not feel like I'm playing Devil May Cry. I feel like I'm playing somebody else's game that wants to be Devil May Cry, and that's made by somebody in, like, France or, like, you know, Spain.
It felt kind of like a more demonic version. I mean, I still like that game, but it felt kind of like a demonic version of Prince of Persia.
Uh-huh.
You know, combined with like a little bit of like, combined with, it's someone named Dante and someone named Virgil. All right.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. It's like a lot of those games have started doing the thing where like, and I know what happened. It's just they got to the point where they're like, oh, anime is not popular anymore. Japanese stuff, because there was a time period where it was like, the more Japanese, the higher it will sell. This was like the early 2000s. And then I think that kind of started to fade away once American and European games became more popular. So, I mean, I understand. As a business side, I get it. You know what? They're trying to, you know, get a wider audience, because if you're selling a game in the late 2000s that's like hardcore Japanese looking, you're only going to get those hardcore Japanese fans, you know, like myself, like you guys, that want that look. But I think the regular audience that plays Call of Duty and, you know, even Gears of War and Assassin's Creed, you know, they'll look, they're like, oh, it looks all anime. It looks like a fucking kid's game.
I'm so sick of Assassin's Creed. I'm just so fucking sick. I never even played the games. I'm sick of every year, or fuck every year, every other month seeing a trailer for a new Assassin's Creed. Like, this one takes place in fucking Egypt. Like, I don't fucking care.
You know what?
Anymore,
Assassin's
dude.
Creed ties into Castlevania. I think what they're trying to do is, because Castlevania had the record for a long time of having the most games in a series. I'm pretty sure like Assassin's Creed is really trying to beat it, because they're probably all of 5 games away from topping Castlevania.
Just like, we got this shit.
We'll show those guys.
Actually, you say I would love to see an Assassin's Creed Egypt version.
Maybe I'm not trying to take anything away from anybody, but like, I mean, because there's a reason why those games keep going on. I know that they have a fan basis, but I guess I'm just tired. It's like, it's always like, as far as I know, you're still, maybe someone can correct me here, you're still this guy, like, let's just plug into my brain and see what's going on in the past. And I'm like, fuck that, just jump in.
And then you know everybody only really cares about the history parts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we want to see more, you know, fucking ancient Jerusalem, or we want to see fucking Captain so-and-so and the fucking colonial period.
This is the sad part of it.
You're like, oh.
I would say this is the sad part about Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed is a very good game, and it just kind of bums me out that they just kind of burnt that series like out. Because really, the first game came out in 2008, and they got over 20 plus titles. Like, that is
really 20?
Yeah.
Do they really have?
I
20?
counted them once. Like, I just kind of went through the list, and I was like, holy fuck! I mean, because like there's so many of them, and it's just like, dude, it's like. The series hasn't even been out for 10 years yet. And there's like 2 to 3 a year.
And then it's like Assassin's Creed 2 is actually 3 games.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like these.
It's like, what?
They're so long. And then the thing, too, is every single game, it's not like they're 10-hour games. They're like 30-plus hour games, every single one. So it's like, how are you going to catch up?
Even longer. It's even longer if you're a collector.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
I mean, you could put way more hours into it. I mean,
yeah.
But the thing is like, okay, say like you're like, I've never played Assassin's Creed. I want to play them all. It's just like, well, better just take a year off of work, because I don't know what else you're gonna do. It's like every single time I played Assassin's Creed game, like that would take me like an entire month or so to like beat one. You know, and that was like getting into it. And I haven't really played them since number 2.
And that's just playing the storyline.
Well, yeah, that's playing the story. I mean, like, I was still having fun with it and everything like that. You know, I wasn't like trying to rush it, but yeah, that's what I mean. It's just like, that's just, to me, I just think it's like, that's so ridiculous. I don't know. I feel like any good video game franchise, you should not come out more than once every 2 years. Like 2 years. 2 years is a perfect length for a video game.
Or I'm even good with once a year, you know, around Halloween time for a specific title.
Well, I would just love to have another Castlevania, so I don't have to keep. Well, I just keep buying the games that are like Castlevania, like wannabe games, but that's not a bad thing in my opinion.
No.
Just going back to just Assassin's Creed just for a second. I remember there's a period where I was in college. That says when it was. I was in college. I remember there's people that were just like fucking Ezio or whatever. Yeah, man, Ezio, that was the fucking guy. And like, how many games has it been since he was in it? It was just because I remember for a good like 2 or 3 years, like that was like everyone's favorite character in video games. Now it's just like one of those things like, fuck it, we don't give a shit.
Well, yeah, it's like now we've had like 15 other guys since then, and girls.
Yeah, well, see, when I first played it, I totally loved the first one, you know, and that was Altair, right? Altair. So that was my boy, you know, like Altair, yes. And you know, and he had like the normal voice, and then like Ezio comes out like, "Hey, I'm Ezio, you're with me."
He's like everyone's favorite Italian. It's like,
it's like
I thought Mario was our favorite Italian. Not anymore.
He just does that, like he just does stealth kill to Mario, just like knifes him, covers his mouth, shh, 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 just lays him down.
It sounds so weird. I never put two and two together. I'm like, maybe that's what Ubisoft was trying to go for. They're like, you know what? Fuck this other Italian. We got a more manlier Italian.
We're gonna beat Castlevania. We're gonna beat Mario. We're gonna beat Grand Theft Auto on open world. Fuck all.
I like this. That's how a bunch of like French guys in a room are talking.
I mean, honestly though, it's like that's kind of like when Assassin's Creed blew up. It's when the second one came out, and you had the Italian main character, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, he's fucking Italian! It's like Mario, but he kills people." You know, it's like
Mario kills a lot of animals. Yeah.
Yeah, Mario kills a lot of Goombas. Yeah.
No, that's not really killing. I mean, he just squashes them.
They're not people. They don't got feelings.
They don't have families that go back to.
Just these underclass beings that live. Their place is at the bottom of his fucking foot.
But I will have to say, back to that Castlevania show though, like in only 4 episodes though, it's like everything I could want in a Castlevania show. Like I felt like that was as dialed in as like a DCU movie, like just perfect. Like you couldn't, you know, I mean, it's like the Dark Knight Returns movie, but like almost even more perfect. Like there was nothing really to complain about. Like I can't think of anything that was like, you know, I would have done this different or that. It was like, you know, it's like even Trevor being the kind of the drunk guy, it's like, that's perfect. My only thing is I hope they put Grant in next. That was about the only thing I kept waiting the whole time. Like, when's Grant going to be there? Who's going to where's the pirate dude going to be at?
Grant Dynasty.
That is name, Grant Dynasty? Yeah. That sounds like a porn star name.
It's a pirate name.
Same thing. That's how it's spelled.
He's after the booty.
Danasty, right? Dynasty.
Yeah, something like that.
But yeah, because in the game he's like, I'm. You should take me because I move fast.
That's what it says.
I climb walls. That's all you need to know as a kid.
That's all he says in the game. He's like, pick me because I'm good I'm fast. You know, you select them and Trevor's like, yeah, okay. Then they shake hands and they go on. It's pretty funny.
That's what she's like, I'm nasty. That's all you need to know.
Now Ryan, you haven't played Dracula's Curse, obviously, and you haven't played any Castlevanias, damn you.
Hey, you could get Dracula's Curse on your 3DS, no excuse.
Well, I'll say this. I have a good excuse. My excuse is I'm a piece of shit and I lie. That's my excuse.
I'm not the kind of guy that says he's going to do something and then I just never get around to it.
I'll say something just to get me through the moments and then act like I didn't say it later in the line. It's just what I do.
See, by you not playing any Castlevania from the last time we spoke, you've kind of like nullified our last conversation. You've created this rift in time and now there's like this big empty void space.
There is like this sense of like unfulfilled promises, or just like, oh yeah, that'll be a fun thing to do. Oh, come on, and I'll just talk about what I think of the game. Did you play it? No, didn't. Oh well, maybe I will one day, but I couldn't. Yeah, I'm just blame. I'm just gonna blame it on the Nintendo eShop because I couldn't get that on the thing. But yeah.
Yeah.
I know,
Well,
just the
okay.
eShop won't let you get it.
So this next thing I'm going to say is, you can't relate to this, Ryan, but Spencer can.
I'll just sit back and enjoy the show.
In the show, Spencer, when Trevor meets the speakers and he goes and speaks with all the when he goes to speak with all the speakers, okay, let's be redundant here. And he's like, yeah, we can't leave because one of ours is left behind looking for the savior underneath the ground. And he's like, okay, well, I'm like, okay, well, I know where this is going. And the way that they're dressed, right, Spencer? You know who they're referring to. So,
I will say this about the Castlevania thing. I kind of knew where the show was going the whole time. Like, it's not like I was surprised by anything. Like, but I don't think that's a bad thing, though. That's actually made me more happy that I knew where everything was going. Like, when they're like, oh, there's a secret warrior down below. It's like, well, duh, that's Alucard.
The thing is, though, in Dracula's Curse, you don't really know what Sypha's purpose was, right? Was in the original game, her purpose was to go destroy Dracula, not find Alucard, right? So it's kind of cool that they kind of integrated that into the story, where she's looking for the savior, which is obviously Alucard, and gets turned to stone in the process. So was that not so? When the show actually started really feeling like Castlevania, okay? I mean, it felt like Castlevania. But when it really felt like Castlevania is when he finally entered the tomb, And he's like,
about the Cyclops.
Yeah, and he's searching for a way in, and he's like, oh, let me grab this torch here. Let me light this torch. And then he's walking through the corridor with the torch light. And then I was like, yes, this is Castlevania right now. This is what's happening. This is what's going down. And then, he's walking, and then he takes that one step onto those bricks, and then he does his first fall, He falls down into the pit. And I was like, yes, this is what Castlevania is, this right here. And he falls down, and I was totally not expecting that they were going to do the Cyclops scene where Sypha is, And so when those lights came on, and then you see the statues, and you see Sypha, the statue, for the first time, like, oh my God, they're actually doing it how it should be done. And then how did you feel when you saw that?
Well, to me, it's just one of those ones, like, it's all the little things, because I like just the touches along the way, like, even when they're, like, in the town, and they're battling all the monsters, and it's like, he's like, go get the holy water. You're like, yes, they're going to throw holy water at him. It's like, just small things. Like, he's using the items. That's what I liked about it, too. It's just like, give him a cross so he can chuck it like a boomerang. Like, give me that. It's just, that show, to me, it captured, like, what a video game should be, whether it's live action or animated. And I'm glad it's animated, because I think animation just would work better. If it was live action, it would just be a lot of scenes of them, like, talking in places, and every once in a while being something kind of cool. I just think it's way better that it's animated. That, to me personally, I just think for something like Castlevania, it's going to look cooler.
Okay, so here's one thing I wanted to mention was, so you were talking about the sub weapons. So in Castlevania, Ryan, when you're playing as one of the Belmonts, particularly, okay, you get these things called sub weapons. So you have your whip, you're doing your whip thing, but then you can collect these sub weapons, which is like, a catch of holy water, or the holy cross, or the dagger, or an axe, or whatever. So did you realize he used the axe? Okay.
He tossed the axe.
He tossed the axe.
And he tossed it overhand too, which was awesome.
He tossed the axe to chop down the cross. Okay. He didn't throw holy water, but other people did.
I guess that's true. Somebody else did. He called out to grab the holy water, but that's close enough, though.
Yeah. And then when he was fighting Alucard at the end, he did a dagger throw. He was like, whoo! And Alucard's like, yeah, fuck you. You're not hitting me with that shit. And I'm like, and when that dagger was so, like, so worthless, even in the game, it's like who uses a dagger, right?
Yeah, the dagger. Like the only time it's cool is in like Dracula X, because then you can get the dagger one, the super powered one, where he's like, oh, and he just throws like 100 daggers at once.
Yeah, but then all your hearts are gone.
Yeah, well, yeah, it just looks cooler than more than anything else. It's not really a practical move, but.
Speaking as kind of like someone who's kind of getting their Castlevania cherry popped watching this, there's a lot of those things I didn't really pick up on that you guys did, but I was still enjoying the show, and I was disappointed it ended after 4 episodes. But I'll say one thing that sometimes this kind of genre does, it's kind of humorless, and I'm not expecting to be like slapstick. Like I'm not expecting like Belmont to go like down like a flight of stairs or nothing. But at the same time, though, I liked how it had humor, but it was dark humor that was very fitting for the moment. Like even like there's a part where he takes out the one guy's eye. Well, first off, Trevor was just funny because he was just staggering around like, I don't want to fucking be here. And he does it begrudgingly with a hangover, takes out the one guy's eye, later fights that guy again, turns the guy around. He gets an arrow right in his one remaining eye. Then later he's just like, the Seekers are somewhere safe, and you see they're with the corpse of the Cyclops. And one guy's like, I swear it just moved, and we just cut back.
Well, the humor was perfect. It was just super dialed in, but it worked. It never felt like it took me out of it. I didn't feel like it broke any moods. It was just more like, hey, that's the kind of humor you would have in a world like this if stuff's going on. That's just how it is.
Now, so okay, I'm getting sidetracked here, but. So you're talking about the humor. So remember the part where after he's rescued Sypha and he's leaving, he's like, I just wanted to get some beer or whatever. And Sypha makes the comment, he's like, I could just pee in a bucket and give it to him. Did you catch that?
I did, because that line went by real fast, but I was like, what?
I was like, wow. I'm like, this shows there's no holding back on this show.
Well, and I think that's smart just to go ballsy. You know what I mean? Because you think about something like this. I mean, I know obviously Castlevania's had mature rated games for like the last 10 years plus, 15 actually by now. Jesus Christ. But, and it's always felt like it was a mature rated game even back in the day. You look at like the old even like Bloodlines, that to me was like a mature rated game of like 93. That game right there is like, well, what the hell else you had to compare it to? It was like just as violent as Mortal Kombat. You know what I mean? It had... the scariness and the gore and everything about it. So it seems fitting to have that. I mean, it's kind of funny in like hindsight, you think of like Castlevania, of like on Captain N, and you got Simon fighting Dracula out there. It's like, who?
With Kid Icarus.
Yeah.
Mega Man.
Kid Icarus on that. That's the one.
He always started it.
He's always like, and damn it, whatever you'd say. Everything always had Icarus in it. Like, it always would rhyme with that.
Fuckerus!
He's like, fuckerus, and the peanut butterus. And it's just like, I remember it's like...
Sure, that never got old.
Yeah, I never did, but still. So I'm just glad to see this show just go balls deep and just make it like, hey, we're going to be as hardcore as possible. And it's violent, and it's going to be good. And it never feels like it's like trying like too hard, because that's the other thing too. Is sometimes there's shows out there that they're like, we're going to be so edgy. Look at this, and it almost just feels like there's a guy like on the sidelines like pointing, going like, isn't this edgy? It doesn't feel like it has that problem either. It's like no, it still feels natural.
Yeah, it totally captured the natural element. All the innuendos and nuances and whatever. Now, what do you think? I'm a big fan of the music to the games. I don't know if you are.
One of the best parts.
What did you think of this, like the soundtrack, as far as the show?
Well, it had more of a, obviously like an orchestra kind of movie soundtrack, I guess, more than like, it's not like they had like, we're going to get exactly like Castlevania tracks whipped in there. I mean, I would be cool if that was the case. I don't know if anybody else is going to be, other than hardcore Castlevania fans. That might throw somebody off, but
a lot of the comments I've seen, like on Facebook and stuff, is a lot of people are like, man, there really should have been a lot more Castlevania-ish kind of music going on. And I'm like, well,
There's a series here, they had like 80s synthesizer type stuff.
I mean, I'll say this. I think the soundtrack totally worked for what it was. I mean, yeah, it doesn't have like those definitive tracks that like a Castlevania has. I will say, this is the one thing that makes me laugh, is like, okay, I just remember like when that Castlevania show came out, like on Twitter, everybody started talking about Castlevania, and I was just wanting to go like, yo, where were you guys for the last 5 years? Ain't nobody talking about Castlevania for the last 5 years.
Yeah, right.
Like, that was such a rare commodity to have. Like, even the retro gamer people, like Castlevania never came up.
No.
Never really came up.
No.
So it just made me kind of laugh that all of a sudden everybody's into Castlevania again. But I think that's a good thing, though. I'm glad, because we need that, because maybe now Konami will start making a new Castlevania game. Maybe we'll start getting some more Castlevania merchandise. It's all for the better.
You know, it's weird. I was reading some more stuff about the reasons why, or how Adi Shankar went about even wanting to create this
Oh,
animation. And it's actually because of Bloodstained Ritual. So he saw that it was getting a lot of attention, and it was like this whole Kickstarter thing, right? So then his original idea was to do a Kickstarter for the Castlevania animation, but then he wound up meeting somebody from Netflix or something, or Warren Ellis.
Yeah, Warren, because his name appears on a lot of those Netflix stuff, I notice.
Yeah, so he by chance he ran into him, and then he threw the idea at him, and he was like, "Yeah, do it, we'll do it," and that was it. So thank goodness he did that, because I don't think it would have happened.
Well, because what would have happened if he would have tried to the Kickstarter thing? Who knows? Like, he could have got halfway through to it, and then Konami would have like shot it down or something like that.
Yeah,
because that always feels like kind of a tougher route to go.
Yeah,
when you're going with somebody else's licensed product, let's just say that.
Yeah, me and Ryan were talking when we were having technical difficulties. We were talking about the length of episodes that Netflix chooses to do when starting out new shows or whatever. What I'm still trying to figure out is, how does like a show like Castlevania only start with 4 episodes, even though people have been talking about wanting a movie or a show of Castlevania for like 10 years now, okay? And they're like, "Oh, we're only going to start you off with 4 20-minute episodes." But then all these other new kind of seasons that come out, they're like
10.
Or what was it? Stranger Things. Yeah. Had a full 8 episodes, hour long. That's like,
well, I will say I can see probably what they did, because Castlevania is something that hasn't been talked about in a long time. Because really, Castlevania hasn't even been popular. Because Lords of Shadows wasn't really that popular of a game. That was a big deal for me, because it was like, new Castlevania! But I noticed that I was like the only person at the store that had the game pre-ordered and super excited about it, and got the special edition metal case and the T-shirt, and I got 2 posters, because somehow, some way, I went in to pre-order my game and I got a poster, and when I went to pick up my game, the guy gave me another poster. I'm like, hell yeah, I'll take that.
I feel like maybe... go ahead, dude. Sorry.
What I'm just saying is that Castlevania, like the last time that Castlevania was really popular was maybe like Lament of Innocence. Like that was probably like, the DS ones were popular, but the thing about Game Boy always is, it's like, it's only if you got a Game Boy. And it's not saying that the games don't do good. They do good, but they just, they haven't been like Castlevania just hasn't been like a huge thing in a while, like in a sense, like a God of War or Assassin's Creed, or it hasn't been in like a Halo category. And I guess probably Castlevania has never been in a Halo category or anything that tall. No. It's always been kind of like, once you bought this, and that, maybe you got into Castlevania.
Honestly, I always thought of Castlevania as kind of like an underground game, Like you weren't a true gamer unless you knew what Castlevania was, or if you played Castlevania.
Regarding the way the thing got made in the first place, you're saying how you thought it was kind of weird how you can create like 8 episodes of an hour-long show, and this one only was like 20 minutes each, 4 episodes. I feel like, for whatever reason, Hollywood, I know it's different companies, but Hollywood has always kind of had trouble like getting on board with certain games. Like for some reason, like we've had 2 Hitman movies, like a Far Cry movie, all these different video games, and then like they backed out, like, we don't know about a Halo movie back in like 2004 and 5 when it was bigger, when it was like the biggest thing possible. I know it's a different company, but they've always been a little like unsure about that kind of shit. And another thing I think actually got made though, maybe the reason why they only did like a half measure was because not saying the show's a half measure, but they only did like a minimal amount of episodes. I think that now we're getting in a lot of this 80s nostalgia, because even the trailer, like the teaser trailer, was just an NES, and then plugging it in, having the Netflix logo. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was very Stranger Things ish, as well as other things kind of coming out.
That's true. I didn't think of that.
And I think it was just one of those ones, like, I think, it's one of those ones they're like, hey, we'll fund this, but we're not going to go balls deep into it just in case if it doesn't work out. I felt like it was a safe bet.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of get it. It's like one of those ones like, hey, just throw it out there, see what happens, and boom, it explodes and does really well. That's cool, but I'm like, that's better than like not doing it at all. Because in the olden days, when you would have been asking for 24 episodes or something like that, that would have probably got it canceled. But since it was only asking for 4 episodes, we can do 4 episodes. What's the worst that's going to happen?
Yeah.
So I'm just more than ecstatic about it. Like, I can't wait till this thing comes out on Blu-ray now so we can get some special features and watch it in great quality.
They already addressed the season 2's happening. They already flat out and said that.
Yeah, they said that like day one. It was like, it came out, and then it was like, season 2's on its way. It's like, oh, okay, cool.
Hopefully they've already started it.
Yeah, but when is season 2 coming out? Next year?
Yeah, it might be a year or 2 away, so it's definitely not around the corner. But I mean, because it's animation. But
well, maybe this one will actually get a full season because they saw this. They saw like, okay, 4 episodes. We'll see how this goes. I was watching. I was into it. I'm like, oh shit, there's 3 of them now. They're gonna go against Dracula. Then all of a sudden, like a trailer for some like other Netflix show started playing. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, oh. Okay.
They walk into the camera like they were doing their walking tombstone walk towards the camera, and it's like over. It's like, and there's.
I mean, like I saw it right off the bat. Like I saw that there's only 4 episodes, and I was like, oh, okay.
That. Yeah. So I was just surprised. Like, oh, that's it. Okay. But I mean,
I'm like, yeah, they're gonna kill Dracula real fast.
But what I'm guessing is they'll probably be like F is for Family, where like the next season might get like 10 episodes.
Yeah. Because F is for Family was originally like I think like 6 episodes.
Yeah, the first one was 6.
The second season was like maybe 10 episodes or something like that. So
yeah, it was 10.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is. It's like they kind of like try the water with season 1, see if people like it, and then from there it's like, okay, now you can go do what you want.
Yeah, bastards.
But I don't care if this ignites just like Castlevania in general, and like as I said, like you see all these people talking about it now that once again probably would never mention Castlevania in the last 5 years. That's okay. That's cool though. People are talking about it. That means that maybe Konami might finally go, hey, let's start doing some Castlevania stuff. I don't even care if they even re-release some things. Like let's just.
You know what's really weird? Like I've been a fan of Castlevania for so long. It's like one of my. It's like my go-to comfort game, right? Mm-hmm. So I've been playing it since I was a little boy, like when Nintendo came out. When I was walking around arcades where you put a quarter in the arcade and play it, You tell that to kids now and they're like, what? What the hell is that,
Mario was never an arcade game.
But it's funny, like talking to people around the internet, different social sites and all this stuff, and they're like, what the hell's Castlevania? Like, nobody knows what Castlevania is, except the real, true following fans that have been in that underground scene for, like I said, like the true gamers really know what Castlevania is. And, it's like, I talk to people, whoever, and they're like, what is that? What is that? And then you get like this good feeling because now you show them what it is and kind of explain to it, and they're like, oh wow, this is actually pretty cool. And it's like, yes, this is what I've been trying to tell people forever. This is the best ever.
Well, it's kind of like Konami's kind of good about having a lot of those hardcore games, because here's something else that's like in that similar category that's something that needs to come back to is Contra. Because Contra's the other real hardcore game that Konami has that's been around for the exact same amount of time. And yeah, the last Contra game they did was hardcore on 360 and PS3, and that game's fucking amazing. And it's just like, come on, bring some of that stuff back. Like
that was hard though, man.
Oh yeah, I know that one. You could play as that girl with the katana, which was pretty sweet in there too. I remember that. Just all those little things, but it's just one of those ones like I just want to see them start like rolling this now, because Konami's been kind of like a dead company. Like literally, Metal Gear Solid 5. Is like the only like big Konami game that's come out on the PS4, Xbox One, Wii U / Switch era. There hasn't been anything else Konami to come out since 360 and PS3. Yeah. Lords of Shadow 2 was like the last really big game, and I said Contra Hardcore. It was a downloadable game, but that was like one of the last ones.
And that's why all these indie game developers now, and all these Kickstarters and whatnot programs. They're all like, fuck, they're not doing any more of these. We're going to make our Metroidvania games, like Bloodstained Ritual and Dark Flame and all these other things,
Yeah, it's like Bloodstained's kind of the one where it's like that's made by the guy, who's been making Castlevania since Symphony of the Night, and it's like that's really cool. But sometimes you see these guys that make these kind of games that are like totally like homages to like what they love, and I always just kind of go, it's like, dude, why don't I always just think of companies like Konami and Sega and Capcom. It's like, dude, why don't you guys just like hire one of these teams that obviously really likes your games and have them be like, hey, like did you play Mother Russia Bleeds?
No.
Okay, it was like a total beat 'em up game like Streets of Rage, but like super violent and everything like that. I'm like, when playing that game, I'm like, dude, Sega, call these guys up and say, hey, you want to make Streets of Rage 4 and put it out just as a downloadable game? Like, I feel like these companies can make tons of money off their old properties by just kind of like making doing like what they're doing with like Sonic, Sonic, the new one, Sonic Mania. Do that, but do that with like all your like old franchises that would like flourish as like PlayStation, like online games and Xbox One games and Steam games. Like, I just feel like, dude, just license it out to these indie guys that are already like in love with your stuff and have them just start making that stuff because you don't have the time to do it. You don't want to put the money into it exactly yourself.
Right.
I mean,
what I don't get is when you hear someone saying like, I am doing a remake of Metal Gear Solid 1 on the Unreal Engine 4, and it's just entirely a love project. That's all it is. I'm not making any money. I just love it this much. I want the next generation to play it. And Konami's like, no, get the fuck out. Get the fuck out. No, get the fuck out. Shut that shit down. It's like, he's not charging anybody. We don't give a fuck. Turn it off. It's just like, you hire that guy. This guy's willing to work for free to get your shit out there. You don't got to pay him a lot, but just hire that motherfucker.
Yeah, just give him shelter and food, and he'll make anything you want. And the sad part is, too, is like whenever people make those kind of games, I mean, like I have to say, good for them, good for going, but it's just like those things always get shut down. It's just like, I just almost feel like, why put so much hours into something that somebody's going to show up at your door and say no?
I feel like almost like they might have a chance to get away with it. Like, nobody's going to notice it. It's going to go right underneath the cracks, and and then next thing you know, it blows up, and then boom, it gets spotted out. They get outed, and then they get shut down.
Yeah, or it's like, if you are going to do it, don't say anything about it till you're done.
Somebody was like doing something. They were trying to make their own original Star Wars game, and it was a very ambitious game. And they're advertising like, yeah, I'm not trying to make any money off it. I just love Star Wars. And then that mouse came in like, so you like Star Wars, huh? I got something else for you. Just this fucking
cease
dick,
and desist, my dick. But yeah, I know it is always just kind of a bummer, like when it comes to those things. But I don't know. It's just like I see opportunity, and it's like that, like, okay, it's like, why not take this opportunity? And I think Sega is the perfect example that like really needs to take more of these opportunities. Because I'm like, dude, just grab these people. Bring out a new Golden Axe. Bring out a new Streets of Rage. Bring out a new Shinobi. Like, all these games would flourish. I mean, you got all these indie companies that are kind of making games for, like, I always say our generation. Because I don't think they're not for the younger generation. They're for, like, us who are like, you know what I want to play? I want to play Super Nintendo, but I want, like, a brand new Super Nintendo game that I almost never played. But it, like, almost like it came out, like, yesterday. And I think, because that's like, to me, I realized that's like my main games I like to play. Like when Shovel Knight came out, that game, it was like, dude, it just felt like it was a lost Super Nintendo game that you never played. That's what was so cool about it. It was just like, it was so good. It was its own original thing. And even though it took like, it had homages to everything, it still felt super original. And like, I'm like, yes, more of this stuff. Or like Shantae, that's another game that's just like, pure amazing. And then even things just like, small things like Retro City Rampage is really cool. Or Hotline Miami, like all these ones like that. Like, I look more forward to these type of games than most big games. So, and I just look at all these guys, like all these guys are making all this stuff and making money off of it. I just feel it's like, dude, if those big companies just went down and just landed and, I mean, maybe they just want to make their own properties, and so they don't have time to do other stuff. I understand that. But the same time, it just feels like it's like, come on, guys, like utilize these people, and get Sega, get Konami, get Capcom's name out there again.
Yeah, I don't know what their deal is, or why don't I just feel like it's almost like, we're just gonna do whatever we want when we want, and nobody's gonna steal our product. And I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. It's like they don't want anybody to mess it up, but they're not doing anything. So why should they care?
Yeah,
I think go ahead, dude.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think it was the late 2000s is like still has left a bad taste in Japanese companies' mouths, because that was the point where like Japanese games just were not selling. You know what I mean? It's like if you were the guy that pre-ordered a Japanese game, you're like the only one. They're like, oh, we only ordered 3 copies of that. We didn't think anyone would get it. So I think there was that period there for a long time, and I think it's starting to turn back around again, where people are starting to be more into Japanese stuff.
Yeah,
because you're starting to see a little bit more of it starting to appear.
I can tell you, I just went to a bookstore, an actual bookstore. Okay, who goes to those anymore, right? I went to a bookstore the other day with my wife, and we're looking around, and I'm like, let me look on this shelf over here. Let me look through the mystery over here. Okay, and then I'm like, what the fuck? Manga. Like fucking 2 aisles of manga. I was like, what? What the hell? I mean, like, they have every kind of manga you can think of, with the entire series, just rows and rows.
Yeah, like 53 books, like something that you would never be able to afford. Like,
and I'm like looking around the store, and I'm like, all the kids are over here in this section. I'm like, am I like writing? And it's like, I don't know.
Well, it's that weird thing is I think that manga and anime, it's not that it's not popular, it's just not like big like it was around like the late 90s, early 2000s, where it was like everybody was just literally taking like their Batman and Superman and Spider-Man and just chucking it in the closet, being like, nope, can't have this right now, gotta have my manga. And then it kind of switched all back around again, and then now I think there's a lot of people that almost kind of did the thing where they started stuffing their mangas and animes back in the closet.
No, well, see, I mean, having these sections in the bookstore, it's like, it looks like the manga sections are growing, And if you ever go to a comic book games shop or whatever, you go there, and it's just loaded with manga and anime, and it's almost like those categories outweigh like the regular comic book, other comic book stuff, DC World and Marvel and all that stuff.
Well, it seems like they're like something like Marvel and DC, and I'm saying this is like, I love Marvel and DC, but I feel like they have all this long history with all these off-branching different stories and series within them, where manga, it's just kind of like maybe a lot of it, but you got this one series right here of this particular, like, all right, Naruto, that's Naruto. It all stays Naruto. You got like, I'm just saying the names of anime rather than the name. I was thinking Cowboy Bebop, but I'm like, oh, that only has like 2 mangas, but you know what I mean? I feel like, manga is an easier jumping on point because it may have a lot of volumes, but it just stays that. Where it's like DC or Marvel, there's like, oh, we rebooted it again, or this person died and then came back to life, and da-da-da-da-da,
Yeah.
No, yeah. That's definitely true. It's like, I guess like manga's a lot more straightforward. It's like, even if you're looking at Dragon Ball, it's like, okay, there's 60 books here, but that's 1 through 60. You look at Batman, and it's like, if you don't really know what you're looking for in Batman, it's got to look really confusing. Like, look at his
like 15 volume number 1s. So yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, to somebody who has no idea what they're looking at, they're like, I just want to read Batman. That's got to be very like daunting and intimidating to look at the Batman.
Do you want to read Batman? Do you want to read Batman Detective Comics? Do you want to read Batman and Robin, Batman Eternal, or Batman and Superman, or
Yeah. Super Friends Batman, Batman the Animated Series,
Batman teaches
like,
typing.
what do you want? Yeah. Batman will go to school with you, Batman? It's like, what's that Batman? That sounds kind of interesting.
It's drawn by Greg Capullo.
Oh, we're out of stock of that one. But no, that is kind of like the thing there. But it's that weird thing that, like, that's the same thing with comics, though, too. It's like, comics as like a whole are really popular, but not the comic books themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's that weird thing. It's like nobody really reads comic books. I mean, like
it's more of like
you got to go out and find people like that read comic books. You know what I mean? Like I just think about all the people that generally me and Ryan know. No, nobody we really know reads comic books that much.
Yeah,
it's mainly just us.
They love all the Marvel and DC movies.
You know, I'm not a huge comic book fan, you know, but I read comic books like novelty things, like things you wouldn't normally think of, such as I'm trying to think of the name of the one with the mice, Mouse Guard.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, that one. The what's his name?
For whatever reason, Mouse Guard intrigues me. I don't know why. I love reading about little mouse, you know, heroes, and you know, like their world is so small, and like everyday things are like monsters to them. You know what I mean? Like the owl in the tree is like this giant monster that they have to hide from, and you know, oh, it took great effort to bring this toothpick down on his beak. You know.
But well, you know, that's what I like too. I like all those like little like because that's what makes comics nice is you could try all these ridiculous ideas without really spending any money except for time. You know, that's what makes a comic cool. It's like, you know, you can make the coolest sci-fi world you ever wanted in like a month. You know, you could do the same thing with fantasy. You could do the same thing with like the mouse. You could do the same. I mean, like with all these other genres that aren't even like related to superhero. It's like I think that's what's kind of cool. It's almost comic books is like the great like testing ground. That's why I don't think comic books will ever really go away, at least anytime soon, is because there's no other genre that you can sit down and create a full-fledged world in like, in a sense, little time. You know what I mean? If you sat down to animate that would take a long time. If you sat down to like shoot a live action movie, that's going to take some money. But a comic book, on the other hand, only takes time. Takes no money. I mean, you technically need money for it, but it's a time thing is what it is.
I feel like something with comics is they were talking about one before. The comics used to make a lot more money back when they strictly aimed for kids because it'd be like, all right, the story's not going anywhere. When when they get too old to read it, another batch of kids will be ready to read this shit and come in and no big deal. But now it has all this continual history and comics matured, and that's they said even though comics got better, that's where they started to lose money. But at the same time, and I remember like it was like right around like 2012, I was hearing things like, we don't know if the comic industry is going to last so long. Like characters and movies probably will, like video games, like I mean not video games, like
it's still alive because you know one of my favorite novels, classic literature, is Dracula, obviously. One of my huge influences. But now they have the graphic novel of Dracula. Have you seen that?
That
came out like probably last year, maybe.
Oh, I'll have to pick that up. I didn't even know that.
And they didn't do Dracula. They did all the classic horror novels. They have Jekyll and Hyde, Frankenstein, and something else. I don't know about that, but I'm sure they'll probably make it. Oh, and they have one of Edgar Allan Poe's, all his like short stories, and they have it all as graphic novels now, and it's actually pretty good.
I like that little cool stuff like that, or like something else I like is when they do like sequels to movies, but they're just in graphic novel form. It's like, dude, that to me is like, you know, we're not gonna get it in real life, so let's just do it in a comic book. Like, you know, there's a sequel to like Total Recall. It's like that's stuff like that. That's cool.
You want to know something? It's kind of like maybe a guilty like thing to admit, but you know what? If I knew I wasn't gonna get like fined by Nintendo or Disney or whatever, I would totally like raise my hand to make the comic book adaptation to the sequel to the Mario Brothers movie that never came out. I would so volunteer to make that if like Nintendo wouldn't strike it down day one.
Well, it'd be one of those ones like, yeah, if Nintendo just gave me like permission, they're like, hey, you want to go make this? I'd be like, hell yeah, of course I want to make that.
And people would like it. People may talk shit on like, who wants to see that? But by this point, people do like that movie. Not a lot of it. There's more than you think.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's more fans out there of the Super Mario Brothers movie that, you know. There's a lot of people that are like you, me. Frank, do you like the Super Mario Brothers movie?
Yeah, it was all right.
See, I like it a lot.
That's better than most people.
Yeah.
What people say.
But it's just one of those ones.
I know we talked about this last time, but I like the Super Mario Brothers Super Show too.
Oh, I love the Super Show. My favorite parts are the live action segments.
Yes,
live action parts, yeah.
Yes.
But well,
Mario, you got a little spaghetti sauce on your overalls there. It's like, you're a slob too.
well, that's all I like about it. It's like a sitcom. I'm like, dude, I wish the show was just 20 minutes of this.
Yeah.
One time I was talking to our friend Wes, and I was saying, like, I really wish, like, they just have, like, the very, like, you know, the episode where Mario and Luigi were up drinking till, like, 2 a.m, and he says, like, you know, Papa always said you were a fucking mistake, Luigi. Fuck you, Mario! And they just, like, get to each other's throats. It just comes, like, very dramatic out of nowhere. Very dimly lit. It's like almost like a David Mamet play almost. Just takes place in like this bar.
Yeah, it just takes place on this stage, pretty much. They're like wrestling on the floor in like the middle of the night, like hitting each other, but it's not like funny at all. It's like very like dark and serious.
very like David Fincher-esque.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're just sitting there watching it like, whoa.
Just feeling awkward about it. And it's like, I'm not Papa. You let him say I'm like Papa.
Well, speaking of comic book stuff, you guys see Spider-Man Homecoming?
I did.
Yes,
I saw it 2 nights ago.
Sweet. Yeah, I saw it like a couple nights ago by now or so.
Spoilers.
Monday. Yeah, spoilers on the Spider-Man if there wasn't spoilers on the Castlevania part already.
Now, I know Chris and I are going to debate on this, so I'll let you go first.
Yeah, well, I'll say I'll use this. This would be my opener to that movie. I like the movie, but I would appreciate Amazing Spider-Man 3 more. I feel like that's the perfect, like, you want to start an argument, like, on the internet? Say that line.
Name of the podcast. Let's leave the Castlevania part out.
Castlevania, and I would appreciate Amazing Spider-Man, 3 more.
Oh, boy.
Watch the dislike bar just rise.
Well, that's the weird thing, too, is because a lot of people, like, really like the Spider-Man Homecoming. It's like, I'm like, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it, but I think just my main kind of issue with it was the fact that, like, Spider-Man had this suit made by Tony Stark, but it pretty much was just like an Iron Man suit geared for Spider-Man. Like, I felt like that gave way too much stuff to Spider-Man. And then, 2, it made Spider-Man almost, like, lesser. I don't know, it was just, like, these weird things. Like, Spider-Man doesn't need somebody to talk to like a computer. You know what I mean? Like, he's got his fat fuck friend. Let him just talk to that guy on the thing. Like, don't, like, that guy, because, like, the way that they had him set up, I was like, dude, that's like the Punisher's, like, guy. You know what I mean? Where he's, like, sitting in the cave, like, telling the Punisher what to do next. I'm like, dude, that's cool.
Peter's like,
it's like, I want to be your chairman. And he's like, what? Your chairman?
Like Peter, I think with Peter, he's like, you can be my fat fuck. Can we use that for word? No, we're going with fat fuck.
He's like, oh, could you refrain from using that one? That's the one that Flash always calls me. He's like, nope, calling you that.
Do a sit-up, and I'll change my mind.
You know, I also like how Flash, like, is not intimidating or threatening whatsoever in that movie. It's like, it's not that I think it's, like, bad. It's like, that's who it is. But that guy right there, it's like, you chose the nerdy guy from Dope, like the third runner character, to be your bully. It was equivalent to Spider-Man 3 as, like, you got Eric Foreman to be the guy who's going to boss Peter Parker around and get angry. And it's like, don't get me wrong, I like Eric Foreman, but, like, that to me reminds me of, like, the least intimidating person you could possibly have. I mean, you could have picked anybody else from that set. You should have just got Red Foreman to be Venom in that. That would have been way more intimidating.
I think that getting Flash, getting the guy from Dope to play Flash, like, I mean, when I was first thrown off, I heard that was Flash. Really? Oh, okay. It didn't ruin or bother me though, because I always kind of, when I was back when I was like, because I took a lot of shit in middle school and high school, and it was always those kind of fucks. It was very rarely the jock. I mean, the jock might be an asshole, might talk a little shit, but it was usually some fuck like that who was either entitled or would act like, just talk shit.
Well, that was the thing that was it didn't really bother me as it just made me laugh every single time because it was almost just like it was hard to take that guy serious as this guy trying to be like Penis Parker.
Which I'll say I never thought of that as kind of penis.
Well, it's just so weird. It's just like it just reminds me of like having another nerdy guy like putting down a lesser nerdy guy. Strangely enough. To like sort of rate, it was just weird. It felt odd. Maybe that's just like an old world problem thing. Maybe if you go to school nowadays, maybe that is the guy that's making fun of you, But to me, it's like, from like in the the '90s, that never would have been like that. Let's just say that.
my qualm about the movie was, in other Spider-Man movies, it's more like, I know he's got the radioactive whatever spider bite powers, and he's like got some kind of superhuman strength now or whatever. Not as badass as Superman, but kind of there.
Mm-hmm.
What I had a problem with it is that all from the other movies, at least he kind of seemed to be a little bit more humanistic. In this one, it was like, fucking throw me off the fucking Empire State Building and I'm gonna live, bitch. You know what I mean? Like, come on.
Well, I maybe it's like one of those, because this is the weird thing too, is like you gotta take is like in the other Spider-Man movies, it's the Spider-Man world and the Spider-Man world alone. I guess now that like he's in the Avenger world, so he's got to be up to par with the Hulk and Thor and Captain America. So it's like, I mean, I think just the thing was, it's just like, it felt like Tony Stark was like hand-holding Peter like a little too much. And I don't know. I guess there's just this thing where it's just like I'm sitting there kind of like arms crossed, like Spider-Man's older than, I mean, not older, but like he's before fucking Iron Man. He doesn't need to be handheld by fucking, and it's not that the parts bother me, but it's just one of those ones like, I'm like, dude, Peter's smart. He's capable. Like, and the whole point I think is like, I feel like what I like about Spider-Man is that he's this guy who's always trying to do the right thing. And it just doesn't always really pan out. It's like, even if he saves the day, it's like the newspaper finds a way to spin it that, Spider-Man's the menace. This is the reason why that's happened.
Right.
And no matter what he does, as nothing kind of goes well, which I felt like when Tony Stark, it was like, that was literally like the Deus Machina that could just show up and be like, bloop, have new technology, and just like give it to him. And it's, I don't know, it's like, I feel like Tony could have gave him a suit that's like, okay, give him a cool suit that like, it, he puts it on, it's all baggy, and it sucks up to him. I'm like, that's cool. But once it kind of like, once they found it and they hacked into it, they're like, oh my God, you have the training wheels program initiated. Let's take this off. And it's like, now you got 6,666 web combinations, and you got this, and you got that, and you got Kendra or Karen or whatever the fuck her name was. So fuck your fat fuck friend. Now you got a computer lady to talk to. And you got, like instead of having spider senses, now you got Iron Man senses and all these things like that. I felt like that just, it almost felt like it was more of like an Iron Man spin-off movie than it was like a Spider-Man film.
Oh, for sure.
Well, acknowledging that just for a second, I'll say this. All that shit he had, though, ultimately, it didn't help him. The only thing that kind of helped him out a little bit more was the drone. Everything else...
And the taser.
The taser, because when he shot the taser, it hit the gun, and the gun was just firing off everywhere. He's like, oh shit, turn it off. And the thing was just going haywire. So it's like, it ultimately, that suit, it kind of, near the end, he's like, just fuck it, just give me the regular webs. And he does everything without the suit. So it's kind of like, giving this kid this very overpowered weapon. He doesn't know how to use it properly. They take it away. He's just back to basic web shooters in his shitty outfit.
Right.
And that's where...
But he gets a suit again at the end.
Yeah, at the end, he gets a super suit. And I'm just like wondering, what does this suit do now? It has the freaking what are those things called? The jet propulsion things, whatever.
Oh,
yeah, the Iron Man stuff.
Well, that was made to look like it wasn't entirely, because the other one's more black, but it had kind of the same design as the Miles Morales suit. So, and Childish Gambino, the Donald Glover character, he's the uncle to Miles Morales. So they're just getting ready to bring him into like another movie or two later down the line.
Yeah, and I could see that kind of coming in there.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of? Spoiler alert, by the way. What did you think of the whole idea of the villain being the father of his girlfriend.
I love that twist. I didn't see that coming at all.
I did too, because I thought the whole time, because once they said Liz, I'm like, oh, that's who they chose for Black Cat. Well, whatever, I'll accept that. So it never crossed my mind at all that was her father, because the whole time I'm thinking Spider-Man logic, and I'm like, okay, well, her father's a thief back in the day.
This is what
stole stuff from the Nazis,
and this is what I'm thinking the whole time. I'm like, this hot guy with these wings, this is actually Batman.
That's what I like. It's like, if you stop and think about it, you're like, dude, that's Batman fighting Spider-Man.
That's probably what they're going with. That's probably kind of like the secret hook.
From the beginning of the movie, I'm like, that's not... Michael Keaton's not a bad guy. He's Batman. He's Batman.
Even though I will say this, though, like, Michael Keaton, though, that's the guy, that's what steals this show, is Michael Keaton. Oh, he's so cool. And then even just like the way they did the Vulture, because I'll say this, the Vulture's not like my favorite. I don't dislike the Vulture, but he's not my favorite Spider-Man one. He's kind of one of those kind of characters, like, if you got a comic, it's like, guess what? The Vulture's showing up. It's like,
okay.
Oh, okay, it's senior day. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's never really been my most favorite one. It's not like I'm looking forward to that issue, or like even in the animated show, it's like, oh, okay, Vulture's coming up again. And in this one, it's just like, I thought his costume, it just looked badass. He had like the flight jacket on and everything like that, and the helmet, and his wings were just kind of made, with the big old propellers in them. And I like the storyline of going like, oh yeah, here's these blue collar work. They almost gave him like a Captain Cold story. That's what I kind of liked about it. It's like, here's these blue collar guys that are, they're on the cleanup crew. They just got this gig. And then, of course, Damage Control shows up and says, get the fuck out of here. We're a bunch of rich yuppies, and kicks him out. So then they're like, you know what, fuck this. We're going to steal some shit, and we're going to go into business for ourselves. Like, I thought that storyline, oh, that was amazing. Like, that to me is like anything Michael Keaton, anything with his crew, awesome. Fucking, what's his name?
Bokeem Woodbine as Shocker was a perfect casting right there.
He was awesome. I wish he had more in it. That was my only kind of complaint, though, is just like, I want more of him. Like, I mean, I know he's kind of like the side character, but it's like, dude, Bokeem needs like a fucking starring role. He's too good of an actor to be like put always on the sideline. Like, make him the next villain for the Spider-Man movie, because he's awesome.
Well, first when they showed that one guy, I was kind of like, it took me a minute. I realized, oh, they actually used both Shockers. I thought that was kind of cool. They kill the one guy, and they bring in the next guy for the Shocker. But, oh yeah, there was more than one Shocker at one point in the comics. So I thought that was kind of cool. They got them both in there like that, and even the part where
I like how the jacket looked just kind of like the Shocker costume.
And he says the line. I like how he says, like, I thought that was the anti-gravity gun. No, that's over there.
Yeah, that was
kind of humor.
I will say, though, the thing is, some of the humor in that movie went a little too far. I noticed that Marvel's starting to step back into, like, because there was a time period where, like, they had a problem with, like almost like their movies were pretty much action comedies. It was like every 3 lines would be like a comedy. And then it started to get toned back. I'm like, okay, cool. They're finally starting to get this back. That's like why Civil War, I think, was so good and things like that. Yeah. And I noticed just on like the last couple Marvel movies, it's like now they're starting to like throw way more jokes in than normal. Like, because that's like my only complaint to Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is that there's just some moments where they just didn't need to say that joke again, because you had a moment going that was nice and you ruined it sort of by having a joke. Yeah. It's like there's a time and a place.
I didn't watch the second Guardians of the Galaxy, but I did see the first one. And I thought there was too much humor in that one too. Like, it just there wasn't.
If you think there's too much in the first one, you're going to see there's a lot in the second one.
It's almost like they kind of like overkilled it with the comedy. It was like, I'm like, can't you just have like one serious moment?
Well, then that's the thing. It's like, perfect example is Castlevania once again. Like, that was like, it had humor, but it was never like there was a moment where it's like, like his, fucking Lisa's up there burning everything like that, and then somebody's cracking a fucking joke. It's not like it did it right there where you're like, okay, you just ruined that moment.
Right.
And I feel like in Spider-Man, like, Spider-Man had almost like a little too much. Because this is how I feel about Spider-Man. The only person that should really be cracking jokes in Spider-Man's world is Spider-Man and probably J. Jonah Jameson. Those are the only people that should be cracking jokes. Like, for the most part, the rest of the world should be pretty serious.
Right.
And in this one, it was just like there was jokes after jokes after jokes. And then there'd be like a moment where you're like, oh, here's a nice moment. And then there's joke thrown in there. It's just like, pull back a bit, guys. Like, you don't need to... I mean, Spider-Man can be funny, but you don't need to make it an action comedy.
I'll say this. I feel like, because I've read a lot of Spider-Man, and Spider-Man always had a lot of humor in it. And I'll say that First off, I didn't say this yet, but I'll just get this out of the way. And this may make you mad, Mitch Spencer. This is my favorite Spider-Man movie, and it's probably some of my top 5 Marvel movies.
You liked it that much? Wow.
Yeah, because the thing is, I feel like first 3 Spider-Mans, they're getting across. I see the disappointment in your face. I apologize, but they get.
I'm like, well, I like this Spider-Man movie, like, a little bit more than Spider-Man 3, but I think I like all the other Spider-Mans more.
Well, I'll say, because the Sam Raimi ones, they are what they are. It was their first go at doing a Spider-Man movie, and they're really trying to beat home that, like, he's just like an everyman, and he's always having trouble, and they're always getting across like he's just a kid. And like, oh, he's like 35, but okay. And and then
that kind of like threw me for a loop. It's like they got this young kid, Garfield, whatever, and it's like, man, he looks really young for Spider-Man.
Oh, I thought Garfield actually was a really good Spider-Man. Like, I thought
That's my favorite Spider-Man.
But but then the second one happened. The second series happens, and then they're trying to make it a lot more sadder and a lot more angstier. And the first one of Amazing, it's not bad. It just feels like it's a little soon because we saw the origin shit. We can just cut to the chase. And then the second one, it felt like there's a good movie in there. It's just they jammed so much shit in there, it's overflowing, and it's kind of hard to like focus on a couple of things that they had going right for it. So, and I think this one, it was just like, all right, let's try and make it a little bit more lighthearted again. Let's not try to double down on the tragedy. I'm sure we'll do that eventually. And then we already seen Spider-Man always at the bottom always on ground level, always at the bottom. This one, it was like he's focusing on Queens. It's doing things we haven't seen before. Like, what happens when there's nothing to like for him to swing or climb onto? Like, address those kind of questions. And then also,
I like that when he's out in the suburbs. Like, well, there's a lot of things in the movie I do like. Sometimes it makes it sound like I didn't like it. It's just I felt like it didn't go as far as it could have been. It felt like it was that kind of thing where it's like one step forward, one step back all at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I think the other thing too is like this probably doesn't help, but I watched the entire like animated Spider-Man series like only a couple months ago, like all 70 something episodes. And that's my favorite like kind of run of Spider-Man because I like that age when Spider-Man's like in his like mid-20s and things like that. Like sometimes I get kind of sick and tired of like high school Spider-Man because it's just one of those ones like how many times are we going to see these high school issues? I mean, and I understand why he's high school Spider-Man because you don't got any other characters that are in high school in the Marvel series right now. So you got to have some high school character. And if you're going to have a high school character, I guess you got to have Spider-Man. But it's one of those ones like it would almost be nice if like Spider-Man's just like, you know what? Fuck it. I ain't going to school anymore. It's just that was it. Just do we not have to? Can we just like minus out the high school like drama stuff?
He was in the Tony Stark
apprenticeship. Internship or whatever it was.
Well, I'll say this movie, the thing about that, because my problem when they do like high school or teen characters a lot, like they pile in all this teen angst. And I'll say for being a high school movie, technically,
but I don't mean to interrupt you, Ryan, but I'm interrupting you.
I mean to interrupt you, Ryan, but your idea is stupid now.
No. No, finish what you're saying, but what I'm going to say about that is that they have to cater to the younger audience too. You know, I'm sitting there in the movie theater and like I'm probably like one of the oldest people in the movie theater watching Spider-Man. You know,
and you're like, "Where's my man, Spider-Man?"
Like they have to have that stuff in there because they have to appeal to the younger crowds. You know, all that angst stuff they just eat that shit up.
Eat it up. Well, no, I'll say that I felt like this movie did not have a lot of the teenage angst stuff. Like it had like the fun of being kind of like it felt kind of like a John Hughes movie, but it wasn't super angsty and super like no one understands me. Like that's the reason why I never really got into Teen Titans comics because it was just like Batman doesn't know what it's like being his sidekick and living in his shadow. Shut the fuck up, Robin. It doesn't really have that to it. This was a lot more fun. There was a little bit of drama in it, but it wasn't like beating you over the head of like no one knows what it's like to be me. And they got across that Peter was a little immature at points, but he never felt so overwhelmingly kind of like you know, an angry kid at Hot Topic, you know?
Well, yeah, it didn't have the emo-ness, but it still had that, because I mean, he was doing that exact same thing that Tony Stark was his Batman. I mean, like, you don't understand, I could do this. He's like, you're not ready for this, you know? Why do you think I haven't called anybody else to come talk to you?
Well, yeah, but at the same,
why do you think Captain America's only cameo was on like a fucking screen at a high school thing? Which
I thought that was funny. That whole.
I thought that was funny. That was I will say this. I was a little bit over the top. Like I don't know. I feel like realistically, would Captain America have the time to sit down and do all these weird videos?
Well, it's meant to be like when he was first Unfrozen, because he's wearing like the Avengers 1 outfit. So, you know, it's like that had to do that like within the first month of he was back in the world.
Well, it's like, yeah, it was like, Cap, you got to pay for... Unfreezing you cost a lot of money, so here's the thing.
Well, even like at the post-credit thing, he says like, how many more of these we got to film? Like, he didn't even want to do it, you know?
Yeah. I get it. It was a joke, but like...
I like when
it was just those things.
I like when they're in the gym class and he's telling, and they put on the Captain America video. He's like, you know, who really even watches anymore? He's a fugitive now anyway.
He's just like, we'll watch him anyway.
That's Captain America telling you wants to do some push-ups, so get this going now. Like Hannibal Buress being the coach of all people.
But no, it's like one of those ones, like, I think, like, bad guy-wise, this movie was awesome. I think almost even, like, one of the... Michael Keaton might have been almost, like, the best Spider-Man villain in all these movies.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think, for sure, like, that was the biggest selling point.
You know what really did it for me for the movie was actually the opening, the intro, where they do the segue from the Civil War movie into Spider-Man. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, he's doing the documentary with his camera and stuff. It's like, yeah, he's like, you're not recording this. Like, no, I'm not recording. You are recording this. Like, yeah, I'm recording this.
I just like lets him go if it's like, okay, cool. No, I thought that was.
I thought the beginning was done well enough to where it held my attention. I was like, okay, I'm invested in this now. I can watch this.
This might be a small thing. I will say that, like, when they're showing the Vulture and his crew just starting to make weapons, and they're playing "Can You Hear Me Knocking" by the Rolling Stones, because Rolling Stones is my favorite band, and I'm watching that. I'm like, oh, Rolling Stones. I'm listening to the words. I'm like, are they going to have the line?
Really your favorite band?
Yep.
Wow.
I know,
but no, I don't know too many people that can say that.
You can't see it, but there's actually literally a Stones poster on this side of this wall that you can't see because of the webcam. But there's that.
Rolling Stones is one of my favorite bands.
Yeah, they're like my number one, I think. But there's a line in that song which says, "You got cocaine eyes," and I'm just like, are they going to say that in a Spider-Man movie? I'm just watching focusing more, listening to the lyrics. It says, "You got," all of a sudden, like the doors open up, the Vulture flies in, like over the music, just like. Eyes! Like, oh, okay, there it is. All right, they cut it out.
They found a way to like censor that. You know what's one more thing that kind of did bother me a bit? It's not a whole lot. It's more just like it goes onto my list that I can start making of like, okay, at the very end of the movie, when they have that one chick, and her name's Michelle through the whole thing, but she does that like, yo, I'm MJ. And I was just like... Does nobody notice that an Irish person is not important anymore in the world? Like, they're as expendable as the 1800s. You know what I mean? Might as well just give them a stick of dynamite, give them, like, you know, a hammer, and tell them to go run into a cave for all they need to know, because that is about as good as an Irish person is to anybody anymore.
Spencer, Frank, ongoing thing with Spencer is whenever there's a redheaded person that's X'd out of a movie, out of a comic book franchise, he's always like, what the fuck? And I kind of get it, you know, being Irish.
It's weird. It's like I'm not even a ginger person or anything like that, but I feel like I need to be a defender. I'm like white knighting ginger people here. I like need to point this out because this happens just almost like too often. And like, here's three main ones I can point out to you right now, but I've seen more of them as, like over time. It's like, I notice it, but okay. Perfect example is, okay, if that's going to be Mary Jane, because who knows? I know she's called Michelle in this one, but when they say that, I mean, like, who the fuck else is going to be called MJ in a Spider-Man
I feel like
movie?
that's kind of like this weird, like gray area. They're like, we want to try and be progressive, but at the same time, let's just say her name's Michelle, just in case people don't like that. We can go like, okay, here's the real MJ. I feel like this is like a testing area for them.
Well, okay, I feel like what they're doing, and this will lead into my other thing, is they're doing the same thing they did before. But okay, so you got that. So there's a redhead character that now is not redhead anymore. Okay, we go back to the Man of Steel. They did the same thing in that one where they kind of, instead of having, Jimmy Olsen, they threw this Jenny Olsen in there, who was like some Indian girl. And it's not that she's an Indian girl. It's just like, what the fuck? You're going to minus out a redhead character? Like, you can't just, there's not even that many redhead people out there in the world. Like, you can't just minus them out. And then another one that, too, it's like, you think of like the Ninja Turtles movies when you got Megan Fox playing it. It's like, dude, April O'Neil is like the most Irish character on the planet. Like, you're going to minus that out too? Like, it's just one of those ones I just noticed. It's like a trend. And it's like, the funny thing about it is nobody says anything.
Everybody,
like,
the casting redhead female actresses has always been a big thing in older movies. So I think they're trying to get away from that now.
Redgate?
Well, this sounds kind of weird, but like, I always feel like the reason why in comic books, this is just walking into an insult, but that's the only way you can do it. In comic books, the reason why you always see so many characters with red hair is because in real life, it's harder than hard to find a really attractive person with red hair. Just gonna say it. You know what I mean? Like,
just to pull it right back.
And I think that's the reason why, because everybody writing comic books is, Stan Lee sitting there, you're like, what'd be nice to see is a hot redheaded chick, right? Fucking draw her, put her in the movie, or put her in the comic.
I bet like you just had like all our ginger listeners are probably like, fuck yeah. You know why? Because they're all fucking ugly in real life. Wait, what?
I'm just saying, think about it. Think about your entire life. Go back in time. Just picture all the red people. I'm not saying they're like god-awful look, but it's like, you don't see like that 10 out of 10 look does not really exist on Reddit. I'm not saying it can't. It just normally does.
You just lost about 30 subscribers.
Okay, so see, this is the reason why there's not enough of them out there to like defend it. But no matter what, I want those, flag waving, Jimmy Olsen respecting people to be out there to take their position, because I think about it this way. I'm like, that's no different. Like, what if you took a character like, what they had? Okay, Cyborg coming out in the Justice League. What if they're like, let's just say they just reversed that and they're like, what? We're going to make Cyborg a ginger. People wouldn't fly with that. They wouldn't let that go. That wouldn't work out at all.
They did some weird thing where they're like, you know what? We're not going to have Jimmy Olsen. We're going to make Lois Lane kind of a ginger.
Yeah, but she doesn't really have. She's not really redhead. That's like the one example where they go, oh look, it's a redhead. It's like, well, that's just a strawberry blonde. That doesn't really count.
Let's take a look back in history. Which feminine hero, you can look back in history and go, who was a feminine hero that had red hair? I could think of.
Jean Grey. Jean Grey is the only one that they stuck with and gave her actually red hair. In fact, they even gave her in the newest X-Men movie. They gave her like red hair that doesn't even look real.
It's usually sidekicks and girlfriends, and then Wally West. Wally West, who's the second Flash.
Yeah, so it's like they have certain characters. Yeah, I say not a lot of men have red hair as much. Like Jimmy Olsen's probably like the biggest one. It's more of females, I noticed. They're kind of the ones that have red hair, and lots of times will they not? And that's where I say, that Stan Lee. I bet you if you ask Stan Lee, you'd be like, Stan Lee, okay, you don't have to say this on camera, but did you just make a bunch of redhead characters because there's not enough like hot redhead people in New York? It's fucking true. True it is.
A true believer. Yes.
It's a true believer. There's just not enough. I searched. Damn it.
Going through the city like Spider-Man himself, looking.
But I don't know. Like that's one of those ones. It's like it's just the fact. It has nothing to do. If it was Gwen Stacy and they switched it around, I'd be like, whatever. That's fine. I mean, that character was kind of weird, anyways, because that character was kind of like, "What up, Spider-Man? You can suck my dick for $1," and you're like, "What?"
Exact line from the movie.
Attitude, like that was just the kind of attitude I got from that character. Like, and then you'd be questioning the whole time, like, does she have a dick? Does she not? Like Spider-Man would be like at home thinking like I asked this girl on a date and she said I could suck her dick, and then she's trying to talk. He's trying to talk to his aunt about this. He's like, okay, if a girl
does a spider sense go off around her like danger?
What kind of tingly spider sense is going off, right?
He's like, Aunt May, I could talk to you about this. I will say, I like how they took, like, okay, because, like, Marissa Tomei in the last, like, Avengers movie, or Captain America movie, technically, Like they made her like Marissa Tomei like really hot. I like the way that they sort of did in the Spider-Man movie. They actually pulled her back and they made her really feel like an ant. You know, I mean, it's still Marissa Tomei, but it wasn't like they were trying to make her just like, look how hot and sexy she is. It's like, no, they made her dress up like how you expect an ant to dress and everything like that. Like, I thought they did a really good job with her on that.
I like Marissa Tomei a lot as Aunt May. She had a lot to do in the movie. Plus, I love the way it ends, how it's just like, what the fuck? It cuts off, starts playing the Ramones.
Oh, yeah. Well, I like that too because it's like almost like good they got that out of the way because that's something that's always bothered me in Spider-Man. Like it's like, dude, tell fucking Aunt like, do you want Aunt May to have a fucking heart attack every like fucking couple issues? Like, tell her what is going on. That is, you are doing way more harm to her by not letting her in. Like sometimes that's Spider-Man's like thing. It's like he tells like the wrong people his like secret identity instead of like telling the people he should.
I did like how he was sneaking in the one night and his friend was just sitting there in the room holding the Death Star. Dude,
oh yeah, I did like that because he goes about like so sneaky, and then kind of comes in and then he's just sitting there holding it. I like that, like the phone message that he gets when like Spider-Man leaves the party and then like that friend's like, he's like, the hat's not working, man. Like that was gonna change everything.
That was his trump card.
It was the hat.
Well, the thing about the movie is, I mean, I also kind of like his. None of the Spider-Man movies really had a real sense of like. This might sound kind of weird when I say it. I never really had a sense of like playfulness. The first series felt very kind of like Spider-Man. It's a big fucking deal. This movie's getting made. The second series was kind.
It really feels like the Chad Kroger song. The Chad Kroger song can define that.
Only a hero.
The hero will save
like
us.
A post, like right after 9/11, like all this real sense of patriotism, and then the second series is like it's very angsty. We're building up to something. This is important, and then this one's like fuck it, we're having fun with it. And I like seeing a Spider-Man do that. And plus, just the whole scene of him just like swinging around New York City or swinging around Queens trying to help out. Looking for things to help out with, kind of fucking up a little bit while the Ramones play. I mean, I think that's something I kind of always want to see in a Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. Is like there still is really good stuff in the movie. It's one of these movies like I feel like I hit it once and then I like pick it back up again, and then I hit it again and then I pick it back up again.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. It's like because I felt like I haven't had a movie in a while that had. I mean, like, because I guess this is the difference. Okay, I take, like, Transformers 5 that came out recently. Well, you don't expect a lot from Transformers. So, like, even if that movie wasn't, like, the greatest movie, it's kind of like, well, yeah, that's kind of what you expect. But Spider-Man, I guess because I kind of hoped for a little bit more. And then when it was kind of like, oh, to me, it felt like almost, I always say there's about two types of Marvel Studios movies. They're pretty much all good, but there's the ones that are, like, pure amazing, which is generally, like, anything that has Captain America in it. And then there's the ones where I feel like, they're good, but they're not like as amazing as they should be. And I feel like that's like the Thor movies. I feel like that's kind of like how I felt like Doctor Strange was, how I felt like, Iron Man 3 and things like that. Like they should be better than they are. Like, it's not that they're bad, but they didn't like deliver. They didn't deliver like Winter Soldier. Let's just say that.
Thor was like,
that's why I think Thor Ragnarok is going to be awesome because I feel like that's the one you separate Thor from everything on the planet, and then you just give him like way out into space. That should be awesome. My only fear now is that it might be there might be too much comedy. I hope it's not like that, but
right. Or they could
Thor and the Hulk. It's going to be that way.
Or they could amp up the violence like they did in Logan. Did you see Logan?
Oh, I love Logan.
Logan was so good. But then again, Logan's in the hands of Fox, so they can take different ballsier approaches that Marvel Studios.
I was like, I never heard so many curse words in an X-Men movie in my life.
Well, I just love that part where like Xavier and Wolverine are meeting and they're just like, fuck you, fuck you. It's like, dude, this is amazing. I'm like, you almost just want to stand up and look around and be like, are we really here?
Yeah. But it's like
there's children in the audience and nobody seems to care.
Yeah, that was the crazy part. It's like, this is supposed to be like a kids movie, kind of. And it was
I think it's just that thing.
Movie.
It's just like it's sort of like evolved into it, and I like how far they can take it. And that's kind of the downfall. I feel like when things are with Marvel Studios, they can't really be that ballsy. They're always going to be kind of held back by like the Mickey. They're not going to be allowed to go farther.
Yeah.
Where like even if like because perfect example, Fox and Sony, they're like the companies that like they can go up and down on like how good a quality they make a movie. But I will have to say it's like they have like way better chance of being ballsy than
Yeah.
the other companies do. Like, I'll say if Sony would have had Spider-Man still, like I just feels like one of those ones, because the thing about Amazing Spider-Man 2, that built up, it was just like, I remember like getting out of that movie, it's like, dude, the third one is going to be so fucking amazing. They're going to have everything in there. You have the Sinister Six. They're going to have everything you've ever wanted in a Spider-Man movie. And then everybody bitched about like Amazing Spider-Man 2, and then that didn't happen. So I think that's the downfall to me, is like, I see of like what could have happened. And like, dude, we could have had Amazing Spider-Man 3, and instead we get Spider-Man Homecoming, which is still good, but it's, I don't know. I just feel like when you compare it to like the two together, it's just like, I mean, obviously one never got made, but it was like what that one was setting up would have been like, oh, dude, that would have been so sick.
Yeah.
Well,
And I think he was already out of high school probably by that point, so like we would have skipped all that crap. His girlfriend's dead, don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah. Going back to Castlevania, if the Castlevania that was put out now, if it wasn't so violent, okay, imagine it without the violence and all that gore and stuff. How would you react to it after?
You mean like if it was like the PG-13 version?
Yeah.
You know, I'll say this. I still think the Castlevania, even if it was PG-13, I would still like it almost just as much. The violence and all the rated R-ness is what gives it like the icing on the cake. But I think even at a PG-13 level, it would still be cool. I mean, yeah, you would miss out on some, certain cool scenes, and you wouldn't get some of those funny jokes. But I still think I would enjoy it. You know what I mean? As long as it's like, let's just say the same movie and it's just edited down.
Yeah.
And like, if you didn't have the knowledge that there was this rated R one, I would still like it. I think having that just makes it that much better. You know what I mean? It's like going the distance,
for sure,
being true to it. I think just makes it that much cooler. But it's like, I'll use this. It's like Van Helsing. Van Helsing's only PG-13, and I love the hell out of that movie. I will say this though, probably if Van Helsing was rated R, it'd be even that much more better though. But.
That was the first official, unofficial Castlevania movie.
Totally. I just remember walking out of that movie. I'm like, dude, it's Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Boom, right there. It's the same story arc. It's so cool.
Yeah. So, I wanted to ask this too about the Castlevania was, so out of all the fight scenes, out of the whole 4 whopping episodes,
yeah, pretty much one fight scene per episode.
Which was your favorite?
The one that was pretty cool, it's kind of short and simple, but was the one where he fought those 2 priest guys like in the alleyway to save the old man. That one was kind of cool because I think that was the first time he whipped out the whip. I think that was. I don't know if he pulled it out before then. So just seeing that, because you think about this. Where do you, other than Indiana Jones, where else do you see a whip in like media?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like the whip is like never used in anything. Catwoman might pull it out. That's maybe the closest example.
But not used like that though.
But not used like that. And even Indiana Jones doesn't use it like that. He's not out there like fucking whipping people's eyeballs out.
You gotta admit, he's pretty badass with that whip. I mean, he's on par. He's on target, dude. You know what I mean? I see a lot around on the internet, people talking, their favorite fight scene is, Trevor versus Alucard, which was amazing.
That feels like it's amazing, don't get me wrong, but that's like the go-to one.
Yeah. My favorite was the Cyclops. Because when he's sitting there running for his life, he's going to get turned to stone. He's hiding behind pillars. Boom, boom, right? It actually kind of reminds me a scene out of my book, the sequel I'm writing to my book. There's a scene where I'm kind of doing that, but Wolfgang is fighting vampires. He's not fighting a Cyclops. And he's dodging behind pillars, and the vampires are like going ape shit on him, whatever. But
awesome.
But that whole scene with the Cyclops, and he takes, he steps out from behind the pillar and he flips the dagger in his hand, or the short sword, and then he just throws it. He throws it, right, and it goes right into the Cyclops, and the Cyclops like, and he's like, come on, die, and he's like, shit, he's not dying, and then he does the most badass thing. He takes his whip, he fucking whips him. Not him. He whips the dagger stuck in the Cyclops and yanks that bitch out, cutting him at the same time. I mean, dude.
And then flings it back into his eye.
That was fucking sick. That was like.
And I want to say this too.
That was my favorite scene.
since you mentioned the short sword, what I like about that is it reminds me of Castlevania 64 because that's the way that he fights in that one. He's got the short sword and the whip.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's the only game that has that technically, other than a game that you can equip that stuff.
I was going to say, I think my.
Like,
I thought that. Like, I think my. Oh, go ahead, dude. Sorry.
What's that?
Sorry, I got all staticky for a second. Yeah. I was going to say my favorite scene was my favorite fight scene is probably the one where he kind of orchestrates the town and moves at a very tactical angle. Like, okay, salt here, holy water. You're a priest. You're a real priest. Okay, go get some fucking water. Come back here. You better not fuck this up. Like, I like that whole part. And they just, in a very tactical way, brings down, like, because, you know, I mean, I love all the, like, where they just charge in and kill things. But I like seeing his kind of, like, tactics. And you kind of see, oh, this is why he's so good. This is why he's so important.
What'd you think of the scene when Trevor's like, "You priest," he's like, "Just you and me with our short sword. Let's go right now. Come on." And then all of a sudden, one of the villagers just runs up and fucking stabs him. I was like,
"Oh, I love that!" Where they just all start like impaling that priest. Like that's the one thing that was like, that's one of those shows like where you're like, "Yeah, fuck those Christians up!" Like you get like such like a powerful like, "Yes." Like, cause that shows like makes all the Christians like these like dark evil bastards.
It's like one stabs him in the back, one stabs him in the chest.
Like
then all of a sudden a fucking pitchfork go through his neck.
Yeah, it's like
I'm like, what?
Yo, fuck Veggie Tales, cunt.
Yeah, this is like it made me just like really happy. Like all those parts, just like yes, that's what we need. Or even when the demon comes by and takes out like that real like the bishop guy.
The whole time I'm like, man, they're really gonna label this show as like anti-Christian for sure. And of course, there was this post I saw is like they were talking about it being anti-Christian. Like, I saw that coming, but
yeah, well, yeah, like I saw it coming too because I was like, oh, they're really pushing that. I mean, because the thing about Castlevania is I felt like in the game wise, it's like it always sort of had that, you know, well, we're using holy water and we're throwing crosses and things like that. Unless you're in the Sega one, they're like, no, he can't throw a fucking cross. This is Sega. You got to throw a boomerang. It's the fucking 90s. Cross is old school. We got to have something more hip, and you know, kids need something that they can relate to. That's why there's a comic book. It's called I think you would like it, Frank. It's called Black Metal, and it's about these two kids that are born of like Norse gods. And I actually like the way the book starts off more than actually how it goes farther into it. But in the beginning, they're just like living at this foster home, and this like mom that's like really nice and does everything for them, but she's almost kind of like oblivious to realizing who these two kids are. And these two brothers are kind of living there. And there's this line. It's like, it's so amazing. I want to make like a t-shirt of it. Like, I don't give a fuck. It's just so cool. It's just, she's like, okay, guys, we need to take you out to school so you can, or we take you to the store so you can get your Easter clothes. And the kids look at her and they go, we don't really go in for the new trendy deities. We're all about the old gods. And I've come to the conclusion, like, dude, that's my new way. If anybody asks me, like, are you Christian? I go, yeah, I don't really go in for the new trendy deities. I'm kind of all about, you know, the old gods, you know, how it was beforehand, you know?
Yeah.
I just thought, like, that just put such a smile on my face. But that book's kind of cool because, like, as they go on, they go into, like, you know, all the Norse lands and they fight demons and all kinds of stuff. And they're on an adventure. And it's pretty sweet. And they join up with a black metal band. The black metal band's the one that, like, they're like, oh, yeah, our songs are the ones that can lead us into, like, you know, these areas and stuff. So it's pretty cool.
Nice.
But no,
nice.
That Castlevania, I can't wait till, like, the next one comes out. As I said, I hope this actually creates, like, a flood of, like, all kinds of new Castlevania stuff. I hope, you know, not only we get in Season 2, but I hope, you know, Konami's like, oh, fuck, we're making a game right now. Let's just get this out. I hope they do something, too, where, like, you know, do a remake of the other two Castlevania Game Boy games, like they did the first one on. It came out like on Wii. I don't know what else it came out on, but that's what I got it on.
Oh yeah, that was
the Belmont.
Belmont's Revenge or something.
Yeah, it was like a remake of like the Game Boy one. I know they like changed a lot of the stuff in there, but I was like, whatever. That game was sweet anyways. Like do that for number 2. Do that for Castlevania Legends. Like I don't care. Do a project that's not going to take that long to do, and then start working on your next big 3D.
I would love to see a revamped a revamped Simon's Quest Castlevania 2.
That'd be pretty sweet.
Like give it a facelift, give it a new fucking RPG system, and fucking go to town with that shit. I mean, they could really make out a fucking cool ass Simon's Quest.
I think that definitely could be a really sweet one. There's certain of those games. It's like that's why I'm so glad that Nintendo's doing it with Metroid 2. It's like, yeah, dude, go back and take like a Game Boy game that's already kind of like, if you didn't play it back in the day, it's gonna be kind of tough to. I mean, you pull up Metroid 2 nowadays, and if you can play it for a little bit, but I mean, like, if you're going to hardcore sit down and beat that game, it's like, that would be kind of tough. So I think it's so awesome they're remaking it, like, on the 3DS. It's like, it's so cool.
Dude, yeah, it does look cool. I saw some video of that. It looks pretty awesome.
It's like, the same thing, it's like, dude, I think that Castlevania Legends would be an awesome remake. The third Game Boy one.
Yeah, for sure.
Because back in the day, that was, for the longest time, that was the original game as far as storyline went until I think Lament of Innocence came out. That was always like, it was technically like the first Castlevania for a long time.
They did remake Dracula X for the PlayStation PSP.
Oh yeah, they had the 2.5D version, which I kid you not, when I played that game, it was like the second that I unlocked the original one, I don't remember ever going back to like the 2.5D one. It's like, oh, I could play the original, or like not even like the Super Nintendo one. It's like they had the even better, like the PC.
Yeah.
The Japanese PC. They had that version on there, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna play that one.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of things there, but yeah, we had a nice old Castlevania roundup here with Spider-Man and all kinds of stuff, and probably about a good time to start reeling it on in, because it's getting probably late where you're at, Frank, and we're almost at about the 2-hour mark.
Yeah,
I would have jumped more in there. Just everything's like literally static right now. So probably the more I talk, the more static he's probably getting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. It just started getting all staticky like that. Now you're literally just like a bunch of blocks.
Yeah, mine's not too bad right now, but it did go kind of in and out throughout the process. But yeah, well, we can't wait for more Castlevania good stuff. Did you get Bloodstain pre-ordered?
No, I can do that.
Yeah, I'll send you the Kickstarter link again. You can order it on there.
Oh, so you have to do it on the Kickstarter?
Yeah, at the moment they're still. I think that's how they all are. So you can pre-order it for PC, PS4, Xbox One. I got mine on Switch. I originally had it on Wii U, but they switched it over to Switch.
No, I'm gonna get it on Switch because that shit's portable.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I mean. It's like at first I was like, dude, when they had the Wii U version, I'm like, hell yeah, I'm getting the Wii U version. Who the hell is gonna have this on Wii U? And then they phased that one out, and then it's like, oh, okay, we're giving you a Switch version. That's like, that's cool.
I'm all about the portable because I'm always out and about on the run, doing different shit. So.
Well, that's what I love about it. I really feel like the Switch. It's like the adult handheld. That's how that system really feels. Like it feels like it's made for an adult that needs a handheld, but then when they're at home, they can still plug it into their TV. But then for somebody who's always on the go.
Yeah, for real.
But yeah, I can't wait. All kinds of cool stuff. That doesn't come out.
So when is that Bloodstain Ritual come out?
Not till next spring if we're lucky.
Fuck.
I've had that. Like I bought that like literally almost like a year and a half or 2 years ago by now. Like it was a long time ago. Like the day one that came out, I was like, oh, and I like went in there. I was like, I got to get this.
Are they gonna remember? Are they gonna remember you?
Yeah, I hope so. Well, because when they did that email, they're just like, you don't have to worry. We got you all covered. I know we don't get the Wii U version coming out, so we're gonna switch you over to the Switch. And I had to read that like multiple times. Like I don't have to do anything, right? Like. I don't want a PC copy. Do not fucking send me a PC copy. I mean, I can play it, but I want a fucking Nintendo one. That's what I want.
It'll come out there right with like Beyond Good and Evil 2.
Yeah.
I've been it takes forever. It's been taking 8 years to come out.
I know. Well, it's like Beyond Good and Evil 2. It's like everybody really wants. I'm like, that Beyond Good and Evil wasn't even that great of a game. It was fun, but it wasn't like. Well, I remember when I finally played that game, I was kind of like, what's really amazing about this game? I mean. Really, what is that great about this game? I'm just going to say it. I'm not saying it's a bad game, but it's not really a great game.
I'm just speaking. I have really no idea. I'm just speaking because I know it's a game that people wanted for a long time, and it's never come out. And now they're making a big deal about it because they showed the new thing for it.
I know. I remember when I saw it, I was like, I almost was really like, I mean, I don't want to sound like a dick, but it's just kind of like, who cares? I mean, like, you know what I mean? It ain't the new Zelda. It ain't the new Castlevania. Just saying. It's not.
I'll tell you who care. French people.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it was an okay game.
Right.
Yeah, but.
All right, well, boys, I gotta get going.
Yeah.
Great having you on, Frank.
Well, Frank, we'll have to do another podcast again soon, sometime.
Yeah,
We got all
sure.
kinds of stuff to talk about.
And by the time we do another one, Ryan has to fulfill the prophecy.
He has to do something. If anything, you could download 1, 2, or 3 Castlevania on your 3DS. I know that sounds like that's going to be like, let's just throw him in like without knowing how to swim through the water, but still.
I think we agreed on Super Castlevania 4 is what you had to play.
We agreed on that one, but since he's having technical difficulties in getting that, I know something he can get is 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, well, time will tell. Time will tell by that podcast.
And if not, when they have the Super Nintendo when the mini Super Nintendo comes out, they got Castlevania 4 on that.
All right, cool. Well, it was awesome talking to you guys again. It was fun.
Same here, Frank.
Always
Thanks
great
for
having
being
you
on.
on.
Thanks for dealing with our hour of technical difficulties that took way more time than it could have.
Yep.
Felt like I lost a year of my life on that for how stressed I was. But till then, check out oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, cartoons, music, fun stuff, and more. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
And I'm F.D. Gross, author of Wolfgang.
Yeah, make sure to check out Wolfgang. You can check it out on Amazon, and then you can also find it on Frank's website himself, and there's all kinds of other cool links there. Boom.
Yeah.
See you guys later.
See ya.
All right, cool.
Sweet.
Well,
all right.
Okay,
thanks again,
Frank, we'll let you get to bed now since it's all late.
Yeah.
Whoa, what? Say again?
We both talked at the same time.
I was just saying thanks for coming on the show, and thanks for like waiting through us on that long hour of just trying to figure out what that was Skype and all that.
Yeah, man, it's all good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem, Frank. Well, we'll talk to you in a little bit.
Yep. All right, man. Oh, you know what? I know that you, Spencer, you said you were a fan of Ailstorm, right?
Oh, yeah.
They're going to be on the Metal Cruise this year.
The one that goes off from Florida?
Uh-huh.
10,000 or 70,000 tons of metal?
Yeah. You going to go?
Every year, me and my friend Kyle have always talked about going on that. And really, it's like the trip itself is not expensive. The more expensive thing is just flying down to Florida.
Is it? Okay.
Well, I know because it's like you can get on the boat for like $500, but it costs like $700 to fly there back.
Right.
That might be. When is that next summer? Or is it this summer or next summer?
No, it's in February.
Oh, okay. So
February 2018, and I think we're going this time. So that'd be crazy if you win and we met up.
that'd be pretty sweet. That's a maybe. I don't know. I am also trying to plan on going to like Columbus, Ohio, because they got the Arnold Schwarzenegger's the classic there, and it's its 30th anniversary. I'm like, dude, if you're gonna go, the 30th anniversary is gonna be the one to go to, and that's like in March, I think. So hopefully everything will go big, and I'll have all kinds of money by that point. We can do all kinds of fun stuff, and we'll never have to worry. That's all I say that every year. That's the only thing you can hope for in life.
We'll be rich and famous by then, hopefully.
Yep, that's all you can hope for, and then you go there. Well, I'm gonna keep that in mind though, because as I said, I've talked about that many of times. I'm like, dude, that'd be so sweet to go. I remember because my buddy, he sold it to me. He's like, dude, it's Ailstorm on a boat. Like, how cool is that? There's nothing better than that. Like the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, last time they played.
Yeah, I saw them on that trip.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
So cool. Was that the one? Did they have children and Bodum there too that year?
I actually have I actually videoed that final concert on that boat. I still have yet to post it on YouTube, so one of these days I'm going to do that.
Oh, sweet!
And they did the Wall of Death, and they killed this guy in a banana suit. It was pretty funny.
Oh, that's awesome!
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, dude, Ailstorm's they're like the best. I don't know. That's like they've become like one of my top 5 favorite bands almost. They're just so good.
Yeah, they are. All right. Well, you guys, your voices are all pixelated. Your visions are all pixelated. So I'm out. It's 1 o'clock in the morning here, so I'm out.
Okay, Frank. Yeah, you get some
Yeah.
rest,
Thanks.
and then we'll talk soon.
Yeah, man, for sure. All right, thanks, man. Take care.
Thanks again, Frank.
Thanks for listening to the Old Man Orange podcast. Check out our website at oldmanorange.com for even more podcasts, cartoons, videos, music, and more. Send us an email at oldmanorangepodcast@yahoo.com. Be sure to subscribe, share, rate, and review us on iTunes, Podomatic, or any of the other fine sites we might be located on. And if you want to help out even more, click on the Amazon or GameStop links on our webpage before you make any purchases there. Won't cost you a penny, but it sends us a little something our way. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week to Old Man Orange.